So nice to see everybody. I know a number of you because I've done stuff with ALI for quite some time, but this is a fun session that I wanted to put together for a long time, really before Teams itself was even out, but it's made it even more critical. And although it's written with the Office 365 tool set in mind, it really can be applied to any digital workplace at all. So I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to kind of jump right in and start in a little bit of a different way. It's date night, not the movie. I don't know if you guys saw the movie, but a real date night. So here's the story. It's January 23rd of this year, 2020, and a guy and gal got fixed up by a mutual friend for their first date. January 30th, 5:00 p.m., the gal, Maya Bittner, breaks off the first date via a text message. Here's the text message. Moments later, the guy responds with this text message. So Maya basically says, hey, look, I know it's the night of our date. I can't make it. I have something else that's come up. And he kind of says, hey, look, that's really disrespectful. Let's just kind of call the whole thing off. Now, Maya then decides a few hours later, I need to go ahead and share this with everybody. So she posts the the text interaction via Twitter. And Twitter explodes. If you look down there at the number of retweets and the likes, and you see the comments, one after another. Some of the people are for Maya. How dare someone disrespect you like that? Some of them are for the date. How could she disrespect you like that? February 5th, Inc. magazine publishes an article referring to the tweet as a lesson in emotional intelligence. And maybe that's part of it. Their point was Maya had such little understanding of what his frame of mind had been that it was so inconceivable to her, she thought it was okay to publicly shame him and put it out there like that. And all of that is interesting, but I think maybe everybody missed the point here because none of this should have happened this way. That kind of interaction should have never been via a text message, right? You're giving someone really disappointing information at the last possible second. And what you're communicating is not only can I not make the date tonight, it's not worth the time for me to pick up the phone and call you and talk to you about it. And the response didn't need to be handled via text. And of course, never, ever do you need to publicly call someone out and shame them by posting the text message online like that, although at least she did cover his identity, but they did have some mutual friends. But the reality is similar scenes like that play out in our digital workplaces all the time. I can tell you this as someone who does leadership coaching and management coaching in digital workplaces, I get evenly split between trying to get leaders and managers to engage at all digitally. You've got to get involved. You've got to get engaged. And there's some great information out there from published in Harvard Business Review that says when managers and leaders are digitally engaged, not just signing the check, but digitally engaged, it actually has a measurable impact on the bottom line of the organization. So yes, you want them engaged, but about half of my time is spent with managers who digitally engage like this, as if stuff that was never appropriate to say in front of a large mixed group is now okay to say in digital media. So there's this whole digital etiquette and boundaries that we're dealing with. Michelle did an awesome job of introducing me, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that. I kind of geek out on this stuff. I write books on it. I love talking about it. But I'm going to ask a couple of questions to help to get to know you guys a little bit. So Chris, if you could pull up the first poll, and I will see how this works, and help me understand how has digital impacted your work in the past 3 months? And I'm asking the past 3 months, not only because a lot's going on digitally, but the sense is a lot more has gone on in the last 1, 2, and 3 months because of what's going on with COVID. So when you're done answering that, Chris, will you pull up the results? And Chris, again, Zoom neophyte here. There we go. Cool. So let me see. Sorry, I've got it on monitor 2 over there. So it's helped productivity. No one has said it hurts their productivity. Some have said a little bit of each, and a few have said there's really not been any impact at all. Cool, interesting stuff. Chris, if you could pull up the second poll and help us understand, how has COVID impacted your organization's digital workplace overall? Is it about the same as it's always been? Has it accelerated a little bit because of this, or has it accelerated a whole lot because of this? Take a couple of seconds to answer, and let's see what everybody said. And while you're answering, I'll show you the personal side of my introduction. And Chris, when you're ready, if you can share the results. Thank you. So it's about the same, 20%, accelerated a little, 40%, and 44%, it's accelerated a lot. So most people have accelerated a little or a whole lot in their digital workplace. Cool and fun and gratifying. As someone who's been trying to convince a lot of organizations to be more digitally focused for years, it's a shame it's taken this to do it, but it's also good to know that companies are benefiting from all this digital infrastructure that's out there now. The other side of introducing myself is the fun stuff, right? That's the reason why we do everything. So my wife and I are recent empty nesters, or it feels recent, but it's been 2 and 3 years now since our 2 daughters got married. We love hanging out with our new sons-in-law now. We, to fill our empty nest a little bit, we adopted Verdi. She's part Chihuahua and part Pit Bull. I'm told that was a very ambitious Chihuahua. We love sampling wine together and riding a motorcycle, although we won't get out as much as we'd like these last few months. Hopefully that will start again soon. And the latest, greatest phase of life that we've just started in the last month is being grandparents. So that's little Theodore Evergreen Tramolini wearing the cool little onesie down there. So that's a little bit about me. And my organization. And what we do is we consult and coach and implement these solutions. So I don't know about you, but let's look at our digital lives here. Our inbox for a lot of us, Outlook, and I know some of you are moving away from Outlook. Others are still balancing it with other things. But for many of us, the inbox is one of our task lists, right? That's kind of where we put a lot of stuff that we need to know, that we need to get to. But in our digital workplace, all of a sudden, we've started to have more and more and more inboxes, right? More places to go to see who's communicating something to me, what do I need to do, how do I respond, what's my history with all of this. And then adding to that, something like Teams isn't just a inbox, it's really a number of inboxes, which is cool and scary, right? It's scary because all of a sudden now every channel is an inbox, not to mention messages and all of those things. There are ways to consolidate it. But the cool thing is, hey, in Outlook, I used to organize all this stuff into folders anyway. And by using Teams, it's kind of organizing it into folders for me automatically. But still, as a type A, proactive project management type of person, oftentimes it's really stressful to have anything in our inboxes, let alone multiple places to go to get stuff done. So what a lot of people have then done is said, well, you know what, let's set up rules or alerts so that all of that goes to my Outlook. So I have one place where everything's coming in, and my head just exploded, right? This is overwhelming. But 3 realities. This is here to stay. If you don't embrace it, you are going to be left behind, right? We need to get it. We also need to help our people get it. We're not helping them by not helping them to adopt these things. If it isn't managed, it is going to put us purely into reactionary mode. You could spend all day dealing with trying to just respond to and deal with all of this stuff. But the good news is, it really can be managed. Part of it's personal habit. Part of it is tools that are already out there in these systems that we can use to help manage it. Now, looking at it from one more perspective here before we jump into how we might be able to solve this problem. This might sound familiar to you, right? Digital disruption is a term that is really out there talking about how digital is disrupting business models because we're doing things better digitally. But digital can also disrupt our lives. And here's how, and here's some research to back it up, right? Focused work is what most of us are paid to do, right? We're paid for what's up here, what the problems we can solve, the solutions we can innovate, the relationships we can build, not so much for just the one-off little tasks that we can provide answers to, right? So what happens with all that focused work is we get interrupted. And we have to be reactive and respond. What does that look like? Well, according to some research from the Washington Post, the average time between interruptions is 3 minutes and 5 seconds from one interruption to the next. And you look at the list of interruptions there, not just someone walking into the office or calling me, but an email comes in, the phone rings. I'm doing web research, but I go the wrong way. If you're like me, I open up Teams or Outlook to do something, and 10 minutes later I'm saying, well, why did I come in here again? I saw something else that I then wound up digging into instead of following down the thread of what I needed to get done while I was in here. All of those are interruptions. It takes the human brain, when you're engaged in focus work, it takes our brain an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get fully refocused, to get fully reimmersed in the problem that we were solving, the work we were doing, the content we were creating, whatever it is. And the stress that adds to our day saps us for approximately another 50 minutes per day, for a total of 6 hours and 10 minutes on average per day spent being interrupted, being disrupted, being distracted, recovering from that, and getting back to work. Now that's based on research that the Washington Post published in 2008 and did a little revision on in 2015. Do you think the ways we get digitally disrupted have expanded or contracted since then? I would certainly submit to you that there are more ways that people are interrupting us than there were 5 and certainly 10, 12 years ago. So it's a challenge. It's something we need to do something about. And what we think part of the answer is this: etiquette and boundaries. Just like there's rules of etiquette for everything in life, from sharing a meal together to shaking hands, and okay, maybe the shaking hands one is evolving a little bit. There's also etiquette for how we digitally engage. They're not all written. They're not all written in ink either. And in fact, what I'll share with you are some of the things that we've run into that we believe make sense, but situationally, they're going to be different. Culturally, within different organizations, just like social etiquette is culturally sensitive, so is this. Some of you will be further along with adopting Teams than others will be, for example. And some of it we're just starting to get our heads around. We're still all figuring this out together. Digital is still new. It's going to be another number of years before we've got all the rules pretty clearly defined, whether they're spoken or unspoken rules. But here are some ideas for it. So first of all, let's talk about the urgency of communications. The reality is most communications are not urgent. In fact, most of them shouldn't be urgent. If most of them are urgent, that might be a sign of maybe poor planning, right? Maybe somebody, or maybe even a little more self-focused, right? Well, it's urgent to me because I have to finish this proposal and I'd like to get an answer to something right now so I can finish it. But really that proposal is not due for 3 more days. And should I interrupt somebody else's flow to get that question answered? Or should I present the question to them in a way that they can answer it in their time, which might still meet my time? So some of the channels are further influenced by some other things that we'll talk about in a minute. So let's just go through these one at a time, kind of working from the bottom to the top. If urgency is low, well, one suggested thing might be that's the kind of thing to post to a social channel, right? And there's different social tools, but when I say channel, that could be a Teams channel, could be a Yammer channel, could be some other social platform, but something where this is just information people need to know, or this is something that might be important to this project we're working on together, but you know what, it's not right now important. It's something that, you know, when the other people engaged in the project have the time and they look at this, they will see it, they can respond and react to it accordingly. So probably a fairly low urgency place to put things. By definition, you're kind of saying, I'm not in your face, I'm not interrupting you, respond when you can. Now, a little more urgent, and you can argue with these. I could resort these, even these two differently, but hold it for a recurring meeting. Look, meetings are there for a reason, right? And so often it's kind of, hey, we have this weekly meeting to go through status and share important updates, and yet we want to give an update on an urgent channel when it just doesn't need to be shared that way. So have meeting agendas out there for your recurring meetings. Make it easy for people to throw things up on a OneNote or in a Teams channel or whatever to review in those meetings. So you can just kind of say, okay, it's out there on the agenda for that meeting. It's an issue we need to talk. At our organization, we have a weekly leadership meeting, and part of that is to review an issues list. And so if a new issue comes up, if it's, you know, something is burning down and we need to do something about it today, well, of course, we're going to communicate it via an immediate channel. But 99% of things that are issues might still be really important, but it can wait another 2 to 5 days until that next weekly meeting. Go throw it on the issue list for that meeting. Let it happen in that regularly occurring meeting. Send an email. So I know this one's probably an object of a lot of debate. Some people would say, we don't even want this on our list. I get it, that's okay. But other people say, this is a really important thing for me. I still do my to-do list in email. I don't do it in my social channel posts. An individual we work with has said, do not send me something in social channels if you want me to do something. It's okay to inform me, but if you want me to do something, right now I'm still in Outlook and I still need tasks that you're asking me to take care of to come into my inbox. So you can mention me, which will put it in there, or you can actually physically put it in an email, but I need an email for that. It's a little bit more urgent. You need something done, but maybe not soon. A little more urgent, okay, let's schedule a special meeting for this. Let's schedule, maybe it's a one-on-one. Let's look for an opening on both calendars that works, and let's schedule a meeting to make that happen. And wow, I'm already 16 minutes in. I think about 20 minutes. I'm going to speed up here a little bit. So let's just build the rest of these out. You can kind of see how, the urgency builds on these things. And by the way, you look at text or a call directly to a mobile phone, never start there, right? If you can go and see someone is in, someone is on Teams, maybe their indicator is red, but maybe this is really important. Okay, I'm going to start with a chat, right? I'm going to send them a Teams chat to get in front of them. And if I don't get a response quickly, maybe I'll try a Teams call to interrupt them a little bit more. You don't have a physical workplace maybe right now, so you can't drop in, but if you could, that might be next. And the last thing is invade their personal space, go into a text or mobile call into their personal contact information. Now, the other dimension to think about with this is what is the level of emotion involved? So remember the second set of illustrations I shared was kind of about urgency. It was like we're disrupting people too often by putting things in front of them through urgent channels that really should be through less urgent channels. But the other thing we're doing from the original story is we're not respecting the emotion behind the situation sometimes, right? And what's interesting when you look across the bottom of that grid there, it's not ranging from positive to negative. It's really neutral on the one end, negative on the other end, and in the middle, positive, you could swing to either side of this matrix depending, or maybe both in certain situations. So let's just look at this real quick. If you're communicating negative information, notice how we just took out almost every digital channel, right? Now, there are some digital things. You might do a Teams call, which is kind of digital rather than a phone call. But in essence, you're communicating something negative to somebody. You need to respect them, right? Hey, look, I'm giving you some feedback about how you messed up that meeting for everybody in it. I do not need to post that in a Teams channel for everybody to read, right? Very, very negative, very, very hurtful to your culture. I also don't need to send it to you as a message, as a chat message. I need to communicate it to you face-to-face if at all possible. Video may be second, or just a voice call as a last option. If it's urgent, then do one of those two. And if it's not urgent, in general, I would say wait until you can be in person. This was designed before COVID, and I get that in person is just not an option for a lot of us in situations now. So you may have to stay in that upper matrix. Now, with positive stuff, like I said, you can swing either direction. Maybe you're sharing a kudos with somebody. Great job on that project. I wanted to personally reach out and thank you, maybe give them some kind of something to thank them. But people love to be appreciated in public too. So you might go to both sides of this, but just trying to kind of simplify it with some simple rules here. Some other things to think about here with it, but I'm going to skip past those very quickly in the interest of time. Just know that we try to reduce everything to this little 2x2 matrix because it's very simple, and that's a helpful starting point. But life is a little more nuanced than that. There are other things that happen, other situational things that are going on, and you need to think through all of those things to say, who needs to be engaged? How do I need to do this? How do I need to make the information available? So that's etiquette. Now let's talk boundaries, right? There's rules of etiquette for everything. There's boundaries too. Look, hopefully all of us know about social boundaries, right? Have you ever scheduled somebody maybe being in your space a little bit, like a near talker that makes you a little uncomfortable? They're crossing sort of this invisible boundary we have, or a family member who gives you unsolicited advice. a little too often, and you need to put some boundaries up around that to protect yourself a little bit. We need digital boundaries as well, right? Boundaries are something that we decide, I am going to enforce this about you. So if you don't fully buy into some standards of etiquette, I'm going to put up boundaries and I'm not going to allow you to cross. And I've actually worked with managers who have set up boundaries, even with their CEOs. I get it. You can't do that in all cases, but it can work really, really well if you do it well. So this is an example of a few here, just to think about. There's a longer list I'll give you at the end of the session today that you can download. So set and respect your status indicators, first of all, right? In Teams, you have the nice status indicator there. Remember to set your status indicator and remember to respect other people's status indicators when you're looking for something. Hey, I think I want to send them a chat to get something right away. Well, I see that they're set to busy. Let me think twice before I actually send them that message right now, right? And you can even go in with Teams and you can essentially say, alert me when they become available. So as soon as they're available, you can kind of try to jump into that space, or you can put a meeting out there for them. Look at different channels at different intervals. So subject of great debate, depending on which channel you think is the more urgent channel to look at. But of course, chat to me is kind of the real-time channel. If someone's going to chat, what they're saying is, this is something that's pretty important. I really need to engage with you right away. I'm choosing to interrupt whatever your flow of work is. And you can look at the others however you want to. Turn off your non-urgent channel alerts. Don't get the pop-up whenever a new email comes in. Even Teams on your status bar on the bottom of your Windows page, turn off a little icon that says how many messages you have. If you're like me, I find that extremely distracting. There's something about that even on my phone. If I look and I say something's going on Teams, and immediately it makes my brain say, I got to go look at that right now. And by the way, do it everywhere. We coached an individual, a manager at one organization, to do this because he was a smart guy, but extremely distractive and very low productivity because he was just so engaged with all these different touches people were trying to have. And we found that when we monitored later, he'd said he turned them off, but he was still responding to emails like within minutes. And when we looked at it and sat down with him, he had his phone sitting there. Every time an email came in, his phone dinged, but his computer didn't ding anymore. Look, be honest with yourself, right? I mean, you got to own it and say, either I'm committed to doing stuff this way or I'm not. Now, remember, if you turn those things off, you better enforce a self-discipline of, I go in and I look at these things at the right frequency level. I can't be checked out on the rest of the world. Set your off hours options for chat. So if people want to chat you and it's after 7 p.m., you may not want that to be dinging your phone anymore, right? That's your personal time. If it's that important, they might actually need to send you a text message. Agree with others, this is a sticky one, to gently point out boundary issues. So instead of just minding your boundaries, things like, hey, thanks for this chat message. This really would have made more sense if you posted to a channel rather than a chat. Own that, hey, we're all learning this together, right? I'm not doing this to be mean. We're doing it to try to help each other, because that person who's telling someone else how to help themselves is going to need someone else to tell them the next day that they did something wrong. A lot's changing fast. Block your focus time on your calendar. Use Insights in Outlook. There's a little illustration of that right there. Focus time is automatically going to set you to, it says focus, but essentially it's a do not disturb icon. So people know I am in focus time. Please don't interrupt me unless it's a crisis. Require links to documents in order to respond. I love this one. So someone sends you an email or posts something in a channel, hey, the proposal is ready, go update it. Well, all right, now I got to go search for the proposal. But if you put a link in there, now I can just click the link and do what I need to do with that next. And then some other ideas for calls there. So last thing to think about on boundaries here is, I love this example, please and thank you, right? Those are kind of great etiquette in everyday life. And when we worked with one company and started assessing things, one person said, I want people to stop saying thank you to me. We like, what is that all about? What do you mean? Like, well, look, people interrupt me all the time to get some information that they can only get from me. I get it, and I hope we can minimize that. But what happens is I then respond to their email or their chat or whatever it is, and then usually 5, 10, 15 minutes go by and I'm getting re-engaged in what I'm doing next. And that person sent me the message and then went on to something else. Now they're looking at my response, and what do? Thank you, send. And bing, I get interrupted again with thank you. And they kind of said, look, worse than that, they don't even take the time to say thank you. It says, THX or K or something like that. It's kind of like, thanks for letting me interrupt you and get all that great information from you. And by the way, I'm going to interrupt you again in 10 minutes, but you're not worth a thank you. You just get a fix, and that's it. So again, the rules are different for everybody, but it was interesting there because it was a very nice culture. No one else thought that way except that one person. And when it came to the surface, all of a sudden people started shaking their heads going, yeah, you know what, that really is annoying. I never thought about that, but that interrupts my flow and it's not necessary. I know that, you're thankful. I don't need to get one every time I respond to something. So if you want to think at a very high level about this, every time you communicate, you like to keep things simple and acronymy. So here's an acronym for you. Listen, understand, connect, and know. Look, what needs to be communicated and when and where does it need to be communicated? Understand the person in the audience. What are their preferences? What matters to them? Someone earlier said, listening is an important part of this. I love that. And listening and understanding are kind of both parts of listening. Then connect, all right? Get it out there on the channel and the time to share it. And then, again, be sensitive to, we're all learning. We don't have all the rules right. So let's get it better and better as we go on. Know the results and improve. So the idea here is, hey, let's all be powered by luck, right? Listen, understand, connect, and know in this digital world. Let's use that to be powered by luck. And luck is what we do. Good luck is why we do it. So also think about your boundaries, right? Good luck is protecting yourself. It's about you and why you're engaged in this stuff. So hopefully some helpful hints in there. If you like the luck principle stuff, we've got a book out on Amazon. You're welcome to go grab. And I got a couple of ebooks for you too. So if you ping me via email after this, I'll send you a digital etiquette ebook that goes into a little more detail and a deploying Microsoft Teams and governing Microsoft Teams ebook that you might find helpful as well. I don't know how to pop up the questions. So if someone can help this digital neophyte, I guess it's in the more ... over here.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do we have time for them or should we move on?
You can go ahead and answer the question.
Okay. Let's see.
I'm guilty of the THX. I will never forget this conversation.
I was guilty of it too before then as well. Believe me, when I saw it, I was kind of like, I thought I was being a nice guy. And
I know.
Little do I know.
We say thank you for everything, but noted. And also, I'm going to have all 4 of my children plot their needs on urgency and emotion on the table before they interrupt me. I think that that's an important takeaway. Like, guys, do you really need to barge in right now? Let's think about this.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, my kids have permission to text message me just because they're my kids, but that's the only way they communicate.
Yes.
I don't think there's any messages here. If I'm looking at the Zoom group chat, I don't think that there's anything in there. So I think we're good.
Jeff, I have to butt in real quick and say, when we're talking about communicating in teams, one of the selling points that we use is you don't have to clutter up all your replies with thank yous. You can just give a thumbs up and move on.
Yeah, good point.
Thumbs up a lot. That's a good point.